Today on the Tip Share, we're going to be talking about curbside delivery and how restaurants have been adapting to that. I'm Andrew Sutton. I'm a client advisor, and I've got Brett Bettine with me from Old Thousand and Old Thousand 2 in Austin, Texas. And we were just kind of talking about what he's done to kind of adapt and get to that curbside delivery with having that limited indoor dining. So I kind of wanted to start with Brett and just kind of introduce your concept and what you're doing, and then tell us about the concept you had before and how it's changed since coronavirus started in March.
Absolutely. We run a Chinese-inspired restaurant in Austin, Texas. We're big fans of Chinese history and culture and the food culture that's come from that country. We've done a lot of work to mix those flavors and spices and preparation methods with a lot of homegrown Austin cooking. We've been fairly successful for the past 4 years. We opened in 2016, and of course, we were a sit-down establishment. We were open for dinner from 5 to 10 on the weekdays, 5 to 11 on the weekends. That was our core business, and during the day, we set up for dinner. With the onset of the pandemic and the limiting of that service, we were actually very, very lucky in that because we are a Chinese restaurant, we already had kind of the structure of a to-go system in place, but it was very limited. It maybe took up 15 to 20% of our sales a week before the pandemic. As soon as the governor instituted the shutdown orders and dining rooms were closed, we were lucky enough to be able to kind of use the structure of that to-go model that we had. And because I work with an amazing team of people, from the managers that I work with, the chefs that I work with, down to just the employees that we've been able to keep on, I'm not going to say it was an easy pivot, but we were able to pivot almost immediately into 100% to go.
Heard. And that pivot was pretty easy because, Chinese food is like probably one of the top to go foods, but going from 15, what are you doing now? And is it all, you don't have any indoor dining, is that correct?
In the past 2 months, we reopened our original location's dining room in a very, very limited capacity. We're seating at about 25 to 30%, which is good. It's going very, very well. Austinites seem to be pretty eager to get out and have dining experiences again, and we're trying to definitely be able to accommodate that in the safest way that we can, and an attempt to keep our staff safe and to keep guests safe and to give people what they're asking for. So
perfect. And one of the biggest things, and the reason I wanted to talk to you most about this, is you've opened up a second location in the middle of the pandemic, and it seems to be going pretty well with pretty much all takeout. Tell us, and I think this is a question a lot of people have, is was this you purchased the restaurant or the space before the pandemic and you had to figure out how to make it work, or were you like, hey, you know what, we're doing really well at to go, let's open up another one in a different neighborhood to make it work? So were you like forced into this, and if you were, how did you make it work?
I'm going to go with a little from column A and a little from column B. We did get into the lease in the property that we're at now with Old Thousand 2. We signed that lease in late December, early January, thinking that we were going to build out a restaurant that we'd have open by early spring. Of course, unbeknownst to us, everything was going to be shut down. So we sat on this place. Our investors pulled back. The money wasn't there to work out the kitchen and whatnot. But as we started proving that even in the limited capacity with takeout service, that we were still a viable, functional restaurant, and that we were able to keep our staff, pay our bills. The investment pool that we had was willing to get this place open after we'd shown that we could make it work.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'd never asked that question. We talk probably at least once a week, and I'd never asked, and I was kind of curious. But I mean, it seems like it's going well. How did you advertise for that? Like a regular restaurant opening, you've got like you've got your soft opening. There's no soft opening when you just open up to the general public with to go. How have you been advertising and getting the word out that there's a restaurant when there's not people walking around to see it? Just curious how you got that word out.
One of the first things we did is we got our signage up pretty quickly, and our second location, the sign, for various reasons, just reads Dope Chinese, which I think got a lot of initial interest as people were driving by. I was like, what is this? And then slowly it came out, limited press releases and things like that. Old Thousand was opening a second location in this new area. And there was initially a lot of excitement about it. And we've actually been very, very warmly welcomed to the neighborhood. As far as soft openings go and the traditional like opening a dining room in the restaurant industry, we ran 3 days of kind of influencers and media and friends and family to come and check it out just to make sure that we had the systems that we translated from the old location into this new space, that they were working in a capacity that we needed them to, and then giving us the time to kind of tweak what we needed to make it work here. After that, we opened up on October 4th, and we've been running ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's super impressive in the current climate. I know you're a little forced into it, but to make it work is great. And one of the things that we've talked about here at RSI is, we see a couple of restaurants opening really successfully with that to go. So, it's not impossible. I think a lot of people are scared to kind of make that jump if they're doing well. So it's great to see somebody having success with that. Another thing that we always talk about, in my little corner of the office is kind of the future of restaurants. Do you think this has changed the way that people will dine out? Like looking forward to 2021, no one knows what's going to happen. But I mean, like even personally, we order food to go pretty regularly to try to keep our neighborhood restaurants open. But do you think that you will continue to do that to go? Would you open up? I mean, I don't want to pigeonhole you into opening up a third to go only location, but I've seen restaurants that are traditionally dine-in open another branch that's to go only. Is that something that you think is going to be common in the restaurant industry? How do you think it's going to change in the future?
There's a lot of questions there, and if I had a clear picture of the answers, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. I do think the dining has changed. I think that kind of heyday from the late 2000s, like 2005, 2006, with chef-driven restaurants and dine-in and experiential restaurants where you're sitting down in beautiful spaces and paying lots of money. I think that a lot of that is shifting just because habits are shifting. For the past year, people have been dining in their homes and getting used to takeout rhythms and finding food that they can bring home. And I think that those habits, once they're established, it's going to be hard to shift back to what it was before. Do I think that people are hungry to get out and to eat in dining rooms again? Absolutely. Do I think that the scope and the breadth of what that's going to mean for people is going to change? Quite possibly. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more casual, probably not packed houses right away, at least for the foreseeable future, as we're getting used to adjusting to the new realities of what life is after this pandemic and what we have to do. Do I think that the industry is in trouble? Not at all. I think that as long as we're creative and as flexible as the industry has proven that it can be, then we're going to have a grand future of serving really interesting food to people who want to try it. And not just in our little niche of the world, but across the board. I think that people need food and they love food, and there are a lot of things that restaurants provide people that are a necessity. So.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love what you say about being creative and innovative, because I feel like that's something that restaurant people have been forced into doing for eternity. And I know there's a lot of doubt for the future of restaurants, but I think it's one of those things that we just got to get through and innovate into, what people want. So, well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this today. Once again, Old Thousand 2 in Austin, Texas. Go check it out. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.